All right. Well, the United States government has announced $250 million worth of military aid package to Ukraine, the last remaining package of weapons available for Ukraine under existing authorization. Congress now needs to decide if it should keep supporting Kyiv's battle against Moscow's invasion. The State Department said the final package of aid includes air defense munitions, other air defense system components, additional ammunition for high mobility artillery rocket systems, 155 millimeter and 105 millimeter artillery ammunition, anti-armor munitions, and over 15 million rounds of ammunition. The statement underlined the U.S.-led coalition helping Ukraine, noting that more than 50 countries are involved. Democrats in the Senate, where they hold a narrow majority, tried to push Republicans in December for a last-minute deal on providing funding for Ukraine, but with little progress, the two parties left for the end of the year holidays. The Biden administration has asked Congress for a supplemental package, including more than $60 billion for Ukraine. President Biden has made backing Ukraine a priority, and U.S. weapons and financial assistance have been critical in helping the pro-Western country battle a far larger attacking Russian force. So far, the United States has the largest share of military aid, which is around $44.5 billion. Meanwhile, the European Union has focused more on financial aid sent through various mechanisms such as loans and grants. Ukraine is also expecting a number of weapons and equipments in 2024. The most prominent one is the delivery of the F-16 jets. Earlier, Ukraine also announced the delivery of Patriot air defense systems. Ukraine's deputy prime minister has warned that the country may have to postpone pay for public servants and pension payments to millions of its citizens if the EU and the United States fail to deliver the promised financial aid early next year. All right, for more on this, we are being joined by David Dunn, professor of international politics at the University of Birmingham. He's joining us live from Birmingham, England. David, thank you so much for joining us on WION. With the funds running out, U.S. is sending more weapons to Ukraine in what seems to be the last batch of aid that has already been authorized. Do you think, given the deep divisions on Capitol Hill, Congress will approve more aid?
Well, certainly it's proved very difficult to get it through Congress. It's one of those peculiar situations whereby there are strong majorities in favor of the aid package in both the House of Representatives and in the Senate. And of course, the administration is backing it. But because of the procedural process of initiating any aid project, there is a small blocking minority in the House that has so far prevented that from happening. And what they're trying to do is link that to funding for security measures along America's southern border with Mexico. So it's a political wrangle. It's likely that it will be solved sometime in January. But of course, as far as Ukraine's concerned, they're very worried because their money is running out at the end of the year. So they could not really afford to have this gap in funding. And of course, politically, it looks bad because it looks like the West is fracturing, is lacking resolve, has an inability to actually put together major funding for its major foreign policy initiatives.
And, there's been criticism for the Biden administration that it hasn't really been able to lay out the reason, notably the national security issues and whatnot, on why it's so heavily arming Ukraine. In your opinion, what are the reasons that the Biden administration is so keen on sending so much weapons of war to Ukraine?
Well, fundamentally, the Biden administration's case is that we can't have an international system where one sovereign state can extinguish and capture and plunder another recognized sovereign state of the United Nations and steal its children and murder its citizens through a whole series of war crimes and get away with it. Because to do that is not just important for the security of Europe, it's important to do with the whole security of the international system. So if Russia wins here, then Taiwan may be vulnerable to China in the same way. We're seeing Venezuela making threats against its neighbors. We're seeing the possibility of the resurrection of the conflict in the Balkans through Serbia, saying, okay, we want back the territory we lost in the 1990s. If you have a system whereby states can just do what they want through force and get away with it, it's a much less stable world. We have a return to disorder and war in the system. So that's the case that the Biden administration is making. It's a case that's made more difficult by the fact that the Ukrainians have not recaptured territory in their counteroffensive. And therefore, some people say we're spending all this money and we're not getting any results for it. And of course, other hawks in America are saying we shouldn't be spending money on defending Ukraine when the big threat to the international system comes from China with regard to Taiwan. So there's a whole variety of different competing arguments being put about as to where the priorities should be and how you should spend your tax dollars.
Yeah, well said. Thank you so much, Professor David Dunn, for joining us on WION this morning. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Always a pleasure.